So we're excited to kick off our panel on quantum computing algorithms and benchmarking. Joining me on the panel are Dr. Ray O. Johnson, CEO of the Technology Innovation Institute, and Professor Leandro Aolita, Executive Director of Quantum Research Center's Quantum Algorithms Division at Technology Innovation Institute. So I'm going to pass it over to you, Ray, for an overview of TII.
Hi, Scott. Thank you. Let me walk you through an introduction to Technology Innovation Institute. As we know, the world around us is very complicated. The global challenges that we face today are getting more extreme every day. It seems like the Millennium Project and the United Nations SDGs helped us understand these challenges. And I think for a number of years, the challenges around energy and other areas, health issues, energy, clean water, food security, maybe didn't really make it to the forefront. But I think the pandemic and some of the other challenges that we've been seeing around energy and around conflict have brought these to bear. And so our focus is on solving these global challenges. We do that through the structure that's shown here. The Advanced Technology Research Council is a government body put in place by the leadership in Abu Dhabi. And they get KPIs from Abu Dhabi. And essentially, the organization was set up to create the innovation and technology ecosystem that will help transform the Abu Dhabi and more broadly the UAE economy from a commodities-based economy to a knowledge-based economy. Those KPIs are implemented through the three operating companies shown below. They are TII, Aspire, and Venture One. And I'll kind of do it in a little different order. Aspire is the program development organization. So they go talk to the ecosystem in 6 priority sectors, which I'll show you in a moment. And they try to understand what their problems are. And then maybe more importantly, they try to understand what are the opportunities for innovation to be applied to things that you don't even think about. And so they bring those back to TII. TII is the Global Research Institute, which I'll describe in a moment. We have 10 centers and 640 people operating in the center. And then Venture One, you can think of as the final stage. This is the commercialization phase. This is where some of the technologies that come out of TI can go into Venture One, which acts as an incubator and an accelerator to help mature these technologies and maybe initially have licensing agreements. And then after the licensing agreements, you can envision maybe new codes being stood up, actually get outside funding from other venture firms. And so this represents kind of the Aspire to TI to Venture One birth death tracking of these innovations as we're applying them to the solutions. And so the objectives of the organization broadly of ATRC are to position Abu Dhabi as a world-leading R&D hub, attracting the best talent, creating this R&D ecosystem that I talked about, attract national research talent in the process, help develop the knowledge economy, and also develop local and global partnerships, which I'll describe in a moment. Here are shown the priority 1, 2, and 3 sectors. The priority 1 sectors are the ones that we're focused on. And I think you can see that they align quite well with the SDGs and the Millennium Project that we talked about. Healthcare, of course, being front of mind today, as well as sustainability, environment, with climate change, food and agriculture. Again, some challenges that we haven't seen for a number of years, but we are seeing now. UAE is a spacefaring nation, so aerospace and space is super important. And then security and defense and transportation. And we do address these challenges through these 10 research centers. You're going to hear from one of them today, the Quantum Center. We also have work in advanced materials and AI and digital science, alternative and renewable energy. As I've said, these centers align with some of the problems that you've seen in the SDGs, as well as the priority sectors that we're aligned to: autonomous robotics, biotechnology, cryptography, directed energy propulsion in space, like we talked about, and then finally secure systems, which is focused on securing all of the unmanned systems that we see entering the environment today, and securing the hardware, the software, and the communication systems. And so some metrics to give you about the organization. We have 640 team members, including 140 UAE nationals, 34 advisors, and these are very eminent advisors that we work with. Each of the centers has advisors that help them once or twice a year with the strategy and kind of setting the scientific tone, and 63 nationalities. So if you think about 63 nationalities and 640 people, and 140 UAE nationals. We have a very diverse organization, which actually leads to even more innovation. And academic contributions, of course, the science is very important. So you can see some of the academic credentials there in terms of publications, books, patents, and seminars. So with that, we'll turn it over and let you hear more about the Quantum Research Center.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Leandro Aolita. I am the Executive Director of the Quantum Algorithms Division in the Quantum Research Center in TII. And I'm going to tell you about quantum computing and in particular about our research on quantum algorithms and benchmarking. Let me first start by a little description of our Quantum Research Center. The structure of TII has already been described by Ray. So in the Quantum Research Center, we have 6 different research lines. 3 of them are experimental, the quantum computation, quantum sensing, and quantum communications lab. And the theory support is provided by these 3 other lines, quantum algorithms, the one I lead, quantum physics, and quantum middleware. So in total, these 6 different lines compose the whole research activity of QRC. Also, some metrics I would like to show about QRC. So we're in only 2 years of existence, we've managed to hire almost 60 employees, 50 of which are top-notch researchers with a high concentration of PhDs. Again, lots of diversity in nationalities. There are also a strong female component, and there are also interns coming and going, and the team is still growing. We have plans to increase by 15 or 20% more employees by next year. So it's really an ambitious take, and we're going very fast and hiring very good scientists and talent acquisition, like Ray was mentioning. Let me jump onto the topic of quantum computation, which is the actual scientific reason why we're here to discuss a little bit of the technology. Essentially, I want to start by introducing the field by saying that this is an emerging technology with a huge disruptive potential. It will be able to solve problems, computational problems that are nowadays intractable even by the most powerful supercomputers, classical supercomputers on Earth. And of course, this has a huge industrial potential, right? Although the technology is still in its infancy, hardware as well as investment is progressing at a very rapid pace. And this is the reason why industrial players around the world are exploring the prospects of quantum algorithms for their specific businesses. And just to give you a figure of merit, just to give you an idea of how much this is growing, the industry on the private sector, there are estimations on the market size, on the global market size of $300 million nowadays in 2022. And it's projected to grow up to $2 billion US dollars by the end of 2018. This is a cumulative annual growth rate of 35%, which is quite impressive. This is on the private sector. Let me show you some figures also on the public sector. As you know, this is still an experimental field and requires lots of research and development. And many countries are taking big stakes with big initiatives on funding for quantum technologies research. So this is an estimate from last year. It's not complete, it's not exhaustive in the sense that there are some countries missing, but at least taking into account the main countries last year, we're talking of an investment of initiatives of up to 25 billion US dollars, right? But how does it work? After this kind of market introduction, let me tell you about a little bit of the technology, how it works, right? How do quantum computers work? The first thing I need to say is to make a distinction. I need to introduce the basic unit of information used by quantum processors. This is the quantum bit, the qubit for short, which is to be distinguished from the classical bit. A classical bit is nothing but a binary system that can take 2 values, 0 or 1, whereas the quantum bit exploits the counterintuitive effects of quantum theories such as quantum superposition and quantum entanglement. Quantum superposition, you may have heard of the Schrödinger cat that can be dead and alive at the same time in a superposition. This is also what is exploited here by quantum computers. So essentially, a qubit is nothing but a system, a quantum system that can be in a superposition of 0 and 1. And the mathematical representation that we use for that is like a vector that points in some direction in the sphere. The closer the direction the closer this vector is to the North Pole, the higher the probability of making a measurement and obtaining 0, the outcome 0. And the closer it is to the South Pole, the higher the probability of getting 1. Let me check if I'm having some audio things. 1 second.
Your audio is great.
I have some problems with audio. 1 second.
You sound great.
Now it sounds great?
Yeah, you're fine. Yeah, just keep going. You're fine.
Okay, sorry. Thanks. Excellent. So I was talking about the qubit. So essentially, this is a system that can exist in a superposition between 0 and 1. And this is the magic about quantum computers, because as you know, computation corresponds to processing bit strings, processing of information. And so if you have n qubits, you can have a superposition of many different bit strings at the same time. This is impressive because the number of different bit strings that can be manipulated in parallel by a quantum computer grows exponentially with the number of qubits. And this is what I try to emphasize here. There is like an exponential scaling of manipulation of information by quantum systems. Once you make a measurement, you project the system onto a definite bit string of zeros and ones. But before that, the system exists in a superposition and quantum computers are able to manipulate bit strings in a quantum superposition. This gives rise to massive amounts of data that can be handled in a plausible time, right? And what do I mean by this exponential scaling? So for instance, here I have the example of the quantum simulation of the penicillin molecule. This is an organic molecule, the first antibiotic that was developed. And you need 286 qubits to represent all the electronic interactions in this molecule. If you wanted to simulate that classically, then you would need to keep track of a number of parameters that is larger than the number of atoms in the observable universe according to the estimates of cosmologies. So this will never happen. Never, no matter how much we advance on classical computers, this number will always be totally out of reach. Whereas with a quantum computer, you can simulate it with 286 qubits. This is the power, the exponential advantage of computations due to quantum computers. So this leads us to quantum algorithms, the main reason why we're here. There is a plethora of applications of quantum algorithms, from machine learning to quantum simulations, mathematics, crypto. I want to focus here on 4 particular use cases that I think are relevant for the region, for the UAE and the Persian Gulf. So of course we have cybersecurity. This is connected to quantum crypto and post-quantum crypto algorithms, but also finance, oil, gas, energy, and sustainability, like Ray was mentioning. And here, of course, logistics, transportations, transport, and aviation. These are all areas that are very important to the local economy, to the regional economy. And these are areas for which quantum algorithms will have a strong say over the next few years. There is, of course, a catch, this superposition principle, the quantum superposition and entanglement. These are quantum properties that are very fragile to interaction, to noise and interaction with the environment. So if you take that into account, you find that these properties need to be corrected, and quantum computers for running complex algorithms, fully quantum algorithms, will require something called quantum error correction that increases the number of qubits that we have to use. And this is what makes it difficult to implement in practice, right? So what we're trying to do here at the quantum algorithms division is to bridge this gap from the algorithmic side. So essentially, experimentalists and engineers are improving the quantum hardware, and we, theoretical quantum physicists and computer scientists, we're trying to close this gap from the algorithmic side. And of course, the final goal is to develop proprietary research for quantum solutions that can lead to applications, right? So how we do that? We have 3 main vertical lines, three main pillars in the quantum algorithm division. These are quantum enhanced algorithms, characterization and benchmarking of quantum devices, and quantum inspired algorithms. Here on this axis, so I tried to represent the different eras of quantum computers. So here is the present time and here's the future. And we are currently in the NISQ era, the so-called NISQ era. This stands for noisy intermediate scale quantum devices. These are devices of hundreds of qubits, so to say, and with some moderate error level, but still without quantum error correction. In the future, we will have full-fledged quantum computers, which will be large-scale and fault-tolerant with full quantum error correction built in, and this will allow us to run very advanced quantum algorithms. And there will be like a transition era that people call early fault-tolerant hardware. And we're designing algorithms for all these type of different regimes of quantum algorithms, right? From quantum enhanced to fully quantum. This is actually the thing about which people hear most. But also there are 2 important pillars for us, which are characterization and benchmarking and quantum inspired. Characterization is all about benchmarking and certifying quantum devices and characterizing the noise and the crosstalk effects. This is very important for chip calibration and for noise mitigation. Noise mitigation is some sort of light version of quantum error correction, which will be available in the early prototypes of quantum computers, and this improves the performance of quantum algorithms. This is a crucial thing because we want to establish a characterization and benchmarking facility in our labs in Abu Dhabi for quantum devices. And then finally, the third vertical that I want to mention is quantum-inspired algorithms. This is maybe a topic of which investors don't hear much, but it's a topic that is gaining momentum in the research community. These are classical algorithms that take ideas, that incorporate ideas about quantum algorithms to solve problems that in many times can do that with some computational advantage, not so much as fully quantum algorithms, but these have the advantage that they can be deployed nowadays in classical computers. So, quantum algorithms is not just about learning a new programming language. It's really about thinking of computational problems from a completely different algorithmic perspective. And by doing that, we learn about ideas. We come up with ideas that sometimes lead to also better classical algorithms. So this is what quantum-inspired algorithms is about. And I'm going to devote a few more words to it because Scott asked me to emphasize this point. I think this is also more new material for people from the investment community. So let me say something, for instance, in an application that we're starting to look with computational fluid dynamics. And I don't need to stop to talk about the relevance of computational fluid dynamics and partial differential equations. These appear everywhere: aviation, aerospace, defense, industrial equipments, of course, ecology, pollution, atmospheric waves, and of course, energy and climate change. So let me show you what I mean by this. So this is the story. Over the years, the quantum computation community has developed very sophisticated techniques to deal with high-dimensional vectors. Why? Because quantum systems, like I was saying, they are described by very high-dimensional vectors. If you want to represent them classically, we need to do that by very, very high-dimensional vectors, exponentially high dimension, right? This is a quantum circuit of a certain algorithm. It doesn't matter. But what I want to emphasize is that the techniques that we have applied over almost, let's say, 20 years for simulating quantum systems can also be applied to simulate other situations where you deal with high-dimensional vectors. So, for instance, here I'm kind of representing a space shuttle re-entering Earth's atmosphere. And there, the fluid, the velocity field of the fluid is also represented by a very high-dimensional vector. So the main goal of these quantum-inspired algorithms here is to adapt and develop techniques that have been developed actually for simulating quantum systems to simulate other situations where you get high-dimensional vectors appearing. Here what I'm showing is a very simple example of steady constant density flow over a cylinder. We're looking at the cylinder here from above. We can see the cylinder in the beginning. You see the transition from laminar fluid to turbulent fluid, these two different regimes. In the beginning, you have the steady flow, and then you see the formation of eddies and turbulence around the cylinder. And what I want to say is that this is like a 7-qubit description of a flow. So what we're doing is classically simulating what a quantum computer of very small size of only 7 qubits will describe for this particular application. So here I'm showing the streamlines, and here we can see the vorticity developing around the cylinder. This is a very simple example, but just to give you a flavor of the type of things that we can do with classical quantum-inspired algorithms. I need to move. I want to say something also about our efforts on characterization and benchmarking of quantum devices. We're automating these tools in our language, our quantum computing language, Keynote. This is developed in-house in TII. This is an open source operating system for quantum hardware with a full stack approach for programming, simulating, control, remote access, and soon characterization and benchmarking. If you want to check the website, here it is, keynote.science. I highly recommend it. This is a very exciting endeavor also of the quantum middleware and quantum algorithms division in our center. Let me conclude. So quantum computing has a disruptive potential. It will solve problems that cannot be solved today, even by the largest classical supercomputers. The technology is still infant, but progress is going very, very fast. And this is what is leading global industrial players to partner with quantum algorithms specialists
You want to start understanding quantum algorithms before advanced quantum computers arrive. You don't want to be the last to be prepared for that technology, right? And the nice thing that I wanted to conclude is these quantum-inspired algorithms. These are classical algorithms that take components of quantum algorithms, and they can offer computational advantages that are relevant today and can be deployed today in classical computers. At the same time, they provide an intermediate tool to go to the final goal of quantum algorithms, right? So it's a twofold advantage by studying quantum-inspired algorithms. And of course, we're interested in partnering with investors for applied research. So let me say some distinctive features. So we're a strong multidisciplinary research team. We take a full stack approach to research with software, middleware, and hardware. And we're no-hype quantum computing experts with 2 decades of experience in my case. This is important for investors, I think, because we don't sell a hype. We keep scientific rigor. And we have full support from the government of Abu Dhabi through ATRC and Startup Possibilities Venture One, like Ray was mentioning, the technology commercialization leg of ATRC. And this is all I have to say. With that, I would like to thank you for your attention. And of course, I stay here in case there's any question. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much for that. Thank you, Ray and Leandro, for that presentation. So the first question is for Ray. I think we recognize that in many of these R&D fields, including quantum, there is research that's being released several times a week. So it's very active, clearly. Now, with that said, from an Abu Dhabi, both financing and support and just general sponsorship, is that what's the recognition that some of these research areas, while there will be some incremental applications and certainly a lot of research, that the actual commercialization of some of these things on a large scale could be still years, if not a few decades out, including nuclear fusion, for example. So I wonder, what is the thought process for some of those in the government and those that are actually backing TII, for instance?
Yeah, I think I would call it a balanced portfolio. And so when we think about our KPIs, we have KPIs in principally 2 main areas. And those are, and I think this came through loud and clear in the presentation just now, the quality of the science. And we have serious people, serious researchers. We're able to attract the best and brightest from around the world into TII. These are very serious people, and so they do serious science. So the quality of the science is one of the KPIs. The second KPI relates to the transition of solutions to the global problems that I talked about. And we operate principally in the TRL 2 through 5. And so our goal is to get to the proof of concept stage. And then we partner, as I mentioned, also with the global partnerships that we have. We partner with institutions around the world to help commercialize these solutions. We also, from a balanced portfolio point of view, take, for example, the 10 centers. Many of the centers are already delivering things. The cryptography centers delivered national cryptography libraries as well as post-quantum cryptography libraries. The Autonomous Robotics Center has delivered GPS-less navigation. Other centers have delivered things. The Direct Energy Center has delivered, almost every center has delivered something in terms of TRL 4 or 5. And I think let's just look at the Quantum Center. The Quantum Center, as you heard, has 3 main elements. It has quantum computing, which you heard a lot about today. It also has quantum sensing and quantum communications. The quantum sensing and quantum communications TRL 4 outcomes are going to occur much earlier than will the quantum computation. However, in terms of a big bet in a world-changing activity, the quantum computation, quantum computing, that's a big deal, right? And so I think our work, we don't, it's not exactly, I said balance, it's not really balanced because the trend is, or the focus is on earlier TRL 4 or 5 outcomes that can solve these problems. However, I think it's important for a global research institute like TII to put some efforts into longer term, higher payoff activities, which I think the quantum computation area represents.
And again, I think the part of the reason I asked this question is really just alignment around patient capital, both from a government, but also the research dollars to support these longer term big bets that you're referring to.
And by the way, it's not every VC or investor who invests in deep tech. And so there are a set of investors who focus on deep tech. There are government activities. It's long been my view that this government industry academic partnership is really important, because the role of central governments has been in the past, and I think continues to be, to make investments in high risk, high payoff things. Quantum computation is one of those areas. As you showed, there's in the charts, there's a lot of central government investment going on around the world, as well as VC and investor interest.
Absolutely. You're spot on with that. So the next question is for both of you, which is we've seen, especially in quantum computing, quantum algorithm, the scarcity of talent. And the reality is that many of the startups, they're not just competing around IP, they're really competing around talent. And one of the things we've seen from an industry perspective is talks, both active and behind the scene, of acquisitions and mergers because of the scarcity of talent. So I wonder if you could talk about, where do you find talent? Is there enough talent? And are you also grooming talent within TI as well?
So let me comment on this. So indeed, Scott, this is a very important, let's say, bottleneck. It's not easy nowadays to hire top-notch scientists in quantum computing. And this is happening everywhere. When I talk to my colleagues, both in academia and the private sector with startups, everybody's fighting for talent. A PhD on quantum physics nowadays has become something very valuable, and everybody is competing for this talent. It's an issue. It's not easy, but however, for us, we have many advantages to offer in Abu Dhabi, for instance, right? Of course, from the financial aspect, we offer very competitive science salaries and a very good scientific infrastructure with top level science, like Ray was mentioning. Abu Dhabi is also one of the safest cities on earth. This is also interesting for families. And the work at TII is really the excellent level worldwide. Like Ray was mentioning, the quality of the scientists that are being hired is at the top. And in fact, we try to have an approach by which we hire scientists not too fast, because if you hire too quickly, then you end up making mistakes, and so we're very careful with that. But it's true that it's an issue now to find people with a PhD in quantum physics. I think that also the number of PhD programs and masters in quantum technologies is increasing everywhere in the world. Also, we are taking part of such initiatives in the country, in the United Arab Emirates. There's an entire ecosystem to be created together with the local universities too. But it's true that it's an interesting moment, because all you have is people coming up from academia. There are still very few universities that have, for instance, programs in engineering with quantum technologies, right? Although this is also growing. So it's really an issue, and it's an explosion of activity, what is going on right now. Ray, would you like to add something on talent acquisition on the side of quantum computing?
No, I think you described it well.
All right, great. Thank you very much. For the limited time that we have, I think we only have time for one more question, which is around QC benchmarking certification. Is that, again, there's so much publication, things on Nature, and and other that are constantly publishing about new innovations, new breakthroughs in quantum. Now, with that said, for industries and particularly companies that are looking to rely on some of these things and rely on the assertions of private startups and private companies, tell us about the importance of benchmarking certification and how that gives more confidence for some of these corporates that are looking to apply this as soon as possible.
This is a great question. Thank you very much for that, Scott. Certifying quantum devices and benchmarking quantum devices is quite different from debugging a classical computer, so to say. We're trying to develop technologies. We're trying to build a machine with the declared goal of doing things, solving computational problems that cannot even be tracked by classical computers. And then comes the question: okay, while we are developing these quantum technologies, how are we sure that they function properly? Characterizing quantum states typically is a very hard task, and there are many techniques that we use. We rely on very sophisticated mathematical methods together with machine learning and unsupervised training. There are a number of tools that we're developing, and the idea is to establish a certification and benchmarking facility that can be used, that will be useful for our own chips that we are developing at Abu Dhabi, but also possibly extend this as a service to other players. You know that there are many startups nowadays that are selling quantum chips without being certified or benchmarked. So they give you a 5-qubit or 20-qubit chip, but it's not really benchmarked. So it's an issue how to make sure that it's working properly. You have to characterize the noise levels, the crosstalk effects between different qubits. And this is crucial for calibrating the chip and also noise mitigation, like I was mentioning. So it's one day when we will have large-scale quantum computers with error correction. Then you will give me a large number and I will run the factoring algorithm. And if I can factor that number, then I know that the computer works well. And this is something that cannot be done with classical computers, but we still don't have those advanced algorithms. So we need certification and benchmarking techniques to know that the quantum technologies that we're developing are going in the right direction. And this is something that is more like an inner service to the quantum community, right? Because this is not the the product that we give to the end user.
Well, I want to thank you, Dr. Johnson, Professor Aolita, for a terrific conversation on quantum computing and algorithms. Please give them a round of applause. We're now going to transition to longevity and life sciences track to talk about reproductive health and rights.